Welcome back to the Credible Dev YouTube channel. Today we're going to be talking about installing Pihole on Proxmox. Before we get into that, just want to thank you for checking out this video. If this content helps you out, you enjoy the content, please consider hitting that like button. Let's go ahead and jump into it. So Pihole, if you're not aware already, is a DNS server that you can run at home that will assist you in blocking trackers and ads and all sorts of things. More specifically, it's not just a DNS server, it's considered like a black hole or a sinkhole DNS server, which means that to give a little explanation of what DNS is, when you type into your browser, google.com, credibledev.com, whatever it is, the network doesn't really understand what that is, so it uses a DNS server to get the IP address, because that's what makes networking work, is the IP addresses. So it translates the domain name that you typed in, google.com for instance, into an IP address. So where Pihole comes in at is that you type in google.com and you set Pihole as your DNS server on your network. So that request will first go to Pihole, and Pihole is configured with different types of block lists. And if that domain appears on one of those block lists, then the content or the resolution of that domain is not served back. It's sent back. I believe it's just like o.o.o.o.o. So basically it's not resolvable. And that, in effect, blocks the content of whatever it is, whether it's an ad or some type of tracker, whatever. And if you put in something that's not in a block list, then Pihole is configured to use an actual DNS server like the Google DNS, the 8.8.8.8, or whichever DNS provider you want to configure it for. You can do custom ones, and they have some built in that you can just simply choose from. So if you request a website that's not blocked and Pihole is not already aware of what the IP address of that domain is, then it'll go ask, the Google DNS or whatever, so that it can serve you that content, and then it'll cache the result of that DNS request. So the next time that you go to google.com, you get that result faster. So whenever you initially request a site for the first time, like when you start using Pihole initially, some of your DNS requests might be slow, but over time, the Pihole DNS server builds up a cache so it can answer your request a lot faster than typical. So if you just had your network pointing at Google DNS while Google DNS is fast, Pihole DNS will be faster because there's not very many hops that it has to make to get to your DNS server, since it's within your own network. So what we're going to be doing today is in our Proxmox that we set up before, which if you don't have Proxmox set up, you can go back and check out the previous video to learn how to set up a Proxmox environment. We're going to set up Pihole as a container, and I already have one set up, so we're going back through the process to set up a second one. Just to walk you through how everything works. It's very simple to set up, very easy to get going with, and you have a lot of configurations that you can do in there in terms of block list, and we'll go over that and how to connect this with your network and all that good stuff. So let's go ahead and hop over into Proxmox, and we'll start creating our container and installing Pihole on it. So over in Proxmox, we're going to want to right click on our node, and we're going to hit create container or create CT. And in here, we're going to give it a host name. We'll just call it Pihole. You can call it whatever you want. And here we'll need to set a password. Now this is going to be the root password for this container. So make sure you set a difficult and secure password. If you want to use a public key for SSH, you can do that here as well. And then we're going to go over to template, and we're going to choose this Ubuntu 20.04 standard template. Now, if you don't already have a template here, let me just back out of this. You're going to come here to local, and then you're going to go to CT templates, and then you're going to go to templates. Now you could upload your own if you wanted, but these are the ones that are offered to you already. So you just need to download one of these. So you can use the search up here, and you can choose the 20.04, whichever version that you want. And then you'll click download. And once that's downloaded, then you'll be able to come here and create the container. So I'll type back in the info here. All right, so we'll go to template, and we will choose the template there. And then we'll hit next. And for Proxmox, you only need 2 to 4 gigabytes of data storage. So we'll just put 4 here, and I'm going to choose this storage. And then we'll go to CPU, and we'll give it 2 cores. And memory, you only need 512 megabytes, but I'm going to give it a gig. And we'll hit next. And then our network here, you're really going to want to give Pihole a static IP address. If you want to set this up as a permanent solution in your home network, you're going to want to give it a static IP address rather than one from DHCP, because if your IP address for Pihole changes because it's set up on DHCP, then when you've pointed all of your machines on your home network to a certain IP address, and then that IP address changes, now your DNS is going to be broken for your home network, and you don't want that to happen. So the best thing to do is to give it a static IP address. So we'll go ahead and do that here. And this is all going to be dependent on your actual home network. So talking about how to set up static IP addresses is a little out of scope for this video. You can do some research on your own to learn how to set that up within your home network. So we've got it configured here to be on 192.168.1.10, and this gateway is my pfSense firewall. We'll go to next, and we'll just leave these DNS settings as the default. Check everything has been configured, and then we'll hit finish. Now we'll wait for the container to be created and then spun up, and then we'll be able to log into it with that root password that we just set up. And we'll use the shell that's built into Proxmox, so we don't necessarily need to SSH into it from our machine, your Linux machine or Windows machine. You can do it all from the Proxmox console. So we can see here that it's finished. So we'll go ahead and start this up, and we'll go to the console. And we'll log in as root. And the first thing we should do is give it an update. So we'll do apt update. And we'll do apt upgrade. This will just update all the packages on it for a fresh start, and then we can install Proxmox. Or, I'm sorry, we'll install Pihole. Alright, so after we got the updates installed, now we can go ahead and proceed with installing Pihole. And we can do that with one command, so I'm going to paste that in here. It'll be down in the description below. You can also check out the official Pihole website for this information as well, but to make it easy, it's down in the description. So we'll paste in this command, and we'll hit enter, and it's telling us we don't have curl installed. So we'll do apt install curl. Yes, we want to install that. And then we'll run the command again. And it doesn't take very long for it to install. It's going to ask us a couple questions here. So it's telling us it's going to transfer our device into a network-wide ad blocker. It's telling us it's free, which it is. You can donate if you wish. I highly suggest that you do to support these projects to keep them going. And Pihole is a server, so it needs a static IP address, as I talked about a moment ago. If you've not already done so, you need to ensure that it has a static IP and blah, blah, blah. You can read that for yourself. We'll hit continue because we did set up a static IP address. Now here's where you're choosing your upstream DNS provider. Now what that means is what I was talking about earlier. So you have all this set up, you have Pihole connected to your network, and you, in the beginning, you don't have a cache built up in Pihole, so you try to go to Google. And Pihole doesn't know the IP address for Google, so it's got to get that information from somewhere. This is where you decide where it will get that information from. You have quite a few options here. Google's listed first. You got OpenDNS and others. If you scroll down, you've got Cloudflare. So you've got a few different options here. You know, some of these offer additional benefits. So like using the 1.1.1.1, like that was 4 ones. They have a family filter that you can use. You can, you know, filter out adult content automatically through the upstream provider, which you can do this through Pihole too using certain block lists. But, you know, if something wasn't caught by your Pihole server in the block list that you configured, and it hits the upstream provider, which offers additional blocking, then it may get blocked there. So there could be an added benefit for that. So you might want to research these providers to see which one works best for you. For me, I'm just going to choose the Google one for now, and you can always change this later. It's not set in stone what you choose here, and I'll show you how you change that after the fact if you change your mind. So it's saying that Pihole relies on third-party lists in order to block ads. You can use the suggestion below, or you can add your own after the installation. So the one that's offering here is Stephen Black's Unified Host List, and we'll go ahead and take that one. Now it's asking if you want the admin web interface, which you're probably going to want. Otherwise, you're going to be managing Pihole from the command line only. So we'll choose yes here because we want the web interface. And it says that we need to install some additional stuff for that to work. Yes, that's fine. Do you want to enable query logging? This is like, are you going to log all of the DNS queries that happen on your network? You may or may not want to do that depending on the environment that you're in, but we're going to choose yes. Now it gets a little more granular. Of those queries, do you want to show all the information about the query? Do you want to hide the domain that they were looking up? And do you want to hide the domain and the client that requested it? And do you want to put it in anonymous mode? We're going to choose show everything here. Let that finish setting up. So once the installation is completed, it'll tell you what the IP address is, and you see here that we can get to it in a web browser at that IP address /admin, and it also gives you the admin password that you're going to use. So we're going to want to take note of this password. All right, we'll choose OK. So let's go ahead and open up a new browser window. And here we are at our admin panel for Pihole that we just set up. So we will paste in our password and we will log in. And this is what the Pihole web interface looks like. It's pretty intuitive. I actually like it. It's simple to use. It gives you a lot of information here on the dashboard, which is going to be the number of queries, how many of those have been blocked, and the percentage of all the queries that are blocked, and how many domains are on our ad list. This is our block list. So how many domains are we blocking, basically, is what that's saying. And we'll go through some of the options here and the settings that you can configure so you'll have a good understanding of how to manipulate and work with Pihole. So the first thing we'll look at here is the query log. This query log is going to show you if you turned it on, if you enabled to log everything. It's going to show you every query that comes into your Pihole server. So you have all these devices on your home network. Whenever they reach out to a domain, they're going to show up in here. And they're also going to be color coded to show you whether they were allowed or they were blocked. And I'll show you on a live Pi-hole server in a moment what that looks like. So groups, this is something you may or may not want to use. I personally don't use it at this point in time, but you could have a purpose for this in your environment. Basically, groups allow you to create a group and add devices that are on your network to that group. So then when you're configuring your block list, you can apply certain block lists to certain groups. So maybe there's some devices on your network that you want to have certain block lists. So let's imagine that you have kids in your home and you want their devices to be in a kids group. And you have a certain block list that would block maybe social media sites or pornography sites or whatever it is. You could apply those block lists to the kids group and maybe not apply those same block lists to another group. And clients is going to list all of your clients that are connected, that use your Pi-hole. Domains is where you can add individual domains to either a blacklist, so that would be a block list, or to a whitelist. And this can be handy if your block list that you're using is maybe blocking a few things that you don't want it to. So you could come in here and you could add those domains to override that block list. So you would add them to the whitelist, and that would explicitly allow whatever those domains are. Add lists, this is where your block lists are. So you could see the one that they offer you during the setup, it's here. You can enable it and disable it here. And over here, if you had groups, you could assign this one to a particular group or groups. Up here at the top, you can add a new one. And I'll have this link down below, but this is one of the pages I like to get block lists from. There's many others. Do some Google searching to see what's going to work best for you. You can create your own too and upload that in here. But they have a lot of different options here for just suspicious domains, advertising lists, tracking, malicious sites, and others. So you can see there's some adult block lists here that you could use. And to add those, you just paste them in here, and then you'll click add, and they'll show up in this box here. Now, when you make changes to your block list, it's important that you update the gravity. So you'll come into tools and you'll go to update gravity and click update, and then that will get those block lists applied. Basically, it's gonna process all of those domains that are in there. Simply adding them to this list doesn't make that take effect immediately. As you can see here, they tell you that you need to update the gravity list as well. So if you need to test to see if Pi-hole is blocking something, maybe just a quick test, you can come here and disable the blocking for a period of time, or you can disable it indefinitely. Local DNS, this is pretty handy if you're setting up servers and things in your environment and you're using Pi-hole across your entire network. You can come in here and you can add domain names in here and associate those to a particular IP address. So that can be really handy to set up customized DNS for your home network. In the tools here, like I said, you have the update gravity and you have some logging that you can view here as well. And down in settings, so earlier I said that you could change the upstream DNS that you have set up later. So if you come to this DNS tab, if you remember, I chose Google during the setup, but if I wanted to change that, I could simply uncheck these and check the one that I want to select. If you want to set a custom upstream DNS server, one that's not listed here, you can come over here and check the box and enter in the IP address for the upstream DNS server if you wish. There's some other options in here as well. You can use Pi-hole as a DHCP server. I'm not doing that in this instance, but may be useful to you in your environment, and you can do that here. You can set the theme for the interface here, so we can change this to like a dark theme, hit save. And I've never really used the API settings, so I don't really have a lot of information on that to give you. Privacy, this is where we chose to show everything, but if you need to change that to where it's not showing all of the details about the queries on your network, you can change that here. And that's really about it for the interface here. Let me hop over to the actual one that I'm using right now so I can show you what the queries look like. So if we come to the query log, we could see that these green ones are ones that were answered. And it tells us who they were answered by. So if it says OK cache, that means that Pihole had it in its cache, so it replied. And if it says OK and then answered by, like here it's saying Google DNS, because I have Google DNS set up as the upstream server, it'll tell you that as well. Also, if you use one of those that are blocking, like the 1.1.1.1, if it has something that your Pihole isn't blocking and it gets to that upstream server and it decides to block it, then in the status you're going to see that it was blocked by the upstream server. Otherwise, it'll show that it was blocked by gravity, which means it was one of your block list, or that it was blocked through one of your manual blacklist entries. So that way, if something's getting blocked, by looking at the status, you can determine where it's getting blocked from, whether that's the upstream DNS server, whether that was your block list, or something that you had manually added. So you can see here's a couple that are blocked, and you can see that they say they're blocked by gravity, which means that they're being blocked by one of the block list. And that's really about all there is to using Pihole. It's very simple to set up, as you've seen, and it's very handy because, for instance, I have a Roku TV, and with these block lists, there's ads on the main screen of the Roku interface, and it will block those ads. And there's ads and games on your phone and various other things that it will block. Now, you may start running into problems if you choose a block list that is a little too aggressive. So what you could do is come in here in this query log. So if something you're trying to access something is just not working and you think it might be Pihole doing it, come here, see if something's blocked, and you can simply add it to the whitelist from this menu, which is very handy as well. And like I said, you can add manual things through this domains option here. So if you know that there are certain things that you never want to be blocked, you could potentially add them here if you chose to. So how do you start using Pihole would probably be your next question. Maybe you're already familiar with setting up your DNS servers on your devices, but I'll show you how to do it from pfSense and from Windows and on a Linux device. So first, let's take a look at pfSense. So pfSense is an open source router, and it's one that I highly recommend, pfSense or OpenSense, which is a branch off from pfSense. Either one of those are great for your home network. And the OpenSense, I don't have it installed right now to show you how the interface looks, but you should be able to find it in a similar way since OpenSense is based off pfSense. I know the interface is different, but you should be able to find this. So you're going to want to go under services, and then you're going to go to your DHCP server. And you scroll down here under servers, and you have DNS servers. And you can put your Pihole server here. Now, I've put a secondary one in here in case the Pihole one is down. It has somewhere else to go to. And you'd probably want to consider doing that as well. Now, on a Linux client, if you're just doing this like per machine, and you don't want to do this across your whole network, maybe you just want to test out Pihole. So on a Linux machine, you're going to want to look at the etc resolve.conf file. So we'll use nano and etc resolve.conf. Well, open that up and you see name server listings here, and you can see this matches what's in pfSense because pfSense is handing this down to my machine. So we'll put name server, and you're going to want your Pihole IP address that you assigned to Pihole to be the first one. Otherwise, chances are whichever one you listed before it is going to get all the requests. So you can edit that. You can also do this in the network manager, which is going to be different depending on what distribution that you have and what desktop environment. But you could come to like your Wi-Fi and you could set up your DNS servers here as well. So for a Windows device, we can go ahead and connect to my Windows VM here. So here we are on a Windows VM, and make this bigger so you can see it. So if we come down here to the network icon and we hit open network and internet settings, and we'll go to change adapter options right here. And you want to choose whichever one is your active network adapter. It's going to be different on every machine. And we're going to go to properties. And here, Internet Protocol version 4, we're going to click on that and then click properties. And what you would want to do is check this box to use the following DNS server addresses, and you would type in your Pihole here as the preferred DNS server. And then again, like I said, you might want to add a secondary one just in case your Pihole server is down. It has somewhere to resolve its DNS queries to. And that's really it for setting it up. If you don't have pfSense and you want this to take effect on your whole network, then you're going to need to look at your Wi-Fi router or whatever router that your internet service provider is giving you, and look in the settings for DNS. It's going to be different for all of them, so I can't give you a generalized idea. You're just going to want to look for the DNS configuration. It may also be under the DHCP settings, but somewhere in there you should be able to find where you can configure the DNS servers for your network. So if you have any questions or anything about Pihole, how to set it up, please leave a comment down below. Again, if this video helped you out, you enjoy this content, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to my channel. I really do appreciate it. Hope everybody has a great day, and I'll see you next time.